Good morning, everyone, and thanks to Ecom Chim Chim for having me today at this 2021 annual meeting. My name is Federica Colucci from University of Pavia in Italy, and today I'm going to present you a case of study during the pandemic era. The goal of this presentation is to describe how a case of research carried on a French school violin from the second half of the 18th century, which you can see in the picture, was impacted by the ongoing pandemic and how this influenced the process and its final result. This includes, of course, showing the required adaptations and the means used. The research has been carried out in collaboration with the Laboratorio di Diagnostica Non Invasiva Giovanni Arvedi at the Museo del Violino in Cremona, which is a non-invasive diagnostic laboratory center for scientific research for the conservation of ancient musical instruments. My personal experience gained during this research has allowed me to reflect on the actual state of digital offers. Therefore, I will also present the problems and the considerations found. The first part of the presentation focuses on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on my research. The research was based, as mentioned, on the French school violin, and the instrument presents significant aesthetics characteristics together with a particular history that links the violin to Princess Marie Adélaïde de France, one of the daughters of Louis XV. The initial plan was to carry on the research on two parallel but connected tracks. First, the diagnostic study in collaboration with the Laboratory of Non-Invasive Diagnostic cited before, and second, the historical, iconographic, and musicological research in order to find out its origin and intended use. The first steps were to build an initial provisional structure, start to list a bibliography to be collected, plan for the diagnostic analysis to be performed on the instrument, and some personal visit of archives, museums, and specialists involved with the recent history of the instrument. However, with the start of the pandemic, of course, the plan had to be readjusted to fit the new situation. And first of all, the bibliography had to be adapted by actual availability, creating an even more stricter hierarchical order and sorting texts by importance over one another. This was necessary due to several difficulties caused by the initial complete closure of libraries and the following only partial reopening. The difficulties were accessing library services, the cumbersome nature of the new system of requests, timelines, authorizations, delays of weeks, document delivery, and interlibrary lending services initially interrupted and subsequently fatigued by the restrictions imposed autonomously by other libraries. Lastly, the possibility to move freely to deal with particular documentary fonts or archives has worsened due to the increased costs of travel arrangements, inaccessibility of consultation rooms, or lack of staff. Second, all the diagnostic analysis. The first part was about the readjustments on the bibliography. This one, then the diagnostic analysis at the laboratory had to be reduced as well from first, a complete VIS and UV photo set, X-ray radiography and spectroscopy to an unique appointment for XRF spectroscopy, which was only on 9 points on the instrument. These 9 points were taken and selected by the aesthetic characteristics of the instrument. The unique appointment was decided because the instrument could not be moved in time to the laboratory due to the several lockdowns and travel restrictions. Thirdly, the planned personal visits to archives, museums, and experts were all cut for obvious reasons and replaced by long-distance contacts, in turn being limited to only laborious means of communication via phone call or email conversation, making it difficult to elaborate the entire research plan and being limited to only showing pictures plus easily missing all the human aspects of an in-person conversation. Considering all these restrictions and difficulties, the result, as shown in the third box, was to move the research from a traditional method to an online resources-based research, with the main usage of published resources and other works, as it was difficult to carry out researches on archival materials as mentioned before. Naturally, this comes with positive and negative aspects, of course. The bibliography was selected and filtered not only with what was actually to be found due to the restrictions, but also because not all printed books are digitized or have an edition available online, causing a gap during a pandemic situation where physical books are problematic to reach. On the other hand, the high number and variety of resources that are actually available online forces one to filter between what must be considered and what can be discarded, arriving at a point where one has to end the bibliography research before reaching an excess of information. Even though a high amount of solidarity initiatives between libraries, universities, and institutions were implemented, the high number of different portals online with digital editions, with or without paid access, do not always work favorable for university libraries in order to have a versatile offer. The positive aspect, though, of using online resources were the new tools that could be used with it, which open also new perspective of research. As an example, with optical character recognition, it was way easier to search for a particular term or word in the text and see where it was cited and in which context. For my research, for example, this was ideal and enabled me to research the complete 14 volumes of the Duc de Luynes, who was at court during Maria Adélaïde adolescence, available thanks to the huge amount of free materials and resources on the Gallica website. Therefore, I was able to recreate a complete overview of Maria Adélaïde and her sister's musical education by keyword search. Also, the OCR system also permits to compare topics more easily between different books just by searching keywords used. The result is a more complete overall picture. Therefore, can this system be considered as an implementation for all documents offered online, even the oldest ones? The iconographic research, on the other hand, conducted on the aesthetics characteristics of the violin, referred to a total of 12 online collections and almost 7,000 items compared with the object of the research. It goes without saying that in a similar framework, an attempt was made to readjust and broaden the research when a reopening was granted, first partial and then total, but it was not possible in any case to make up for the shortcomings of the previous months, as it would have meant restarting the study almost in full use with the consequent lengthening of the times. In the end, the research was expanded, of course, and the amount of information found online, as well as the vast iconographic research, has also allowed to validate even more the final result, which sees the violin as a great example of French violin making of the second half of the 18th century, with an interesting history behind it, but it discards the possibility that the violin itself was owned by the French princess. The second part of the presentation considers some reflections on the digital offers of Music Museum online collections. A positive consequence of COVID-19 pandemic is the revitalization of the digital focus, even though the most museums are using the most common tool in the public communication, which is the social media, of course. The main reason is that social media can potentially reach a much broader portion of the population than other digital tools, but there is a completely specific audience which is being cut off if we consider that social media only reach a medium public, which are the researchers. It is almost a fact, indeed, that museum online collections are not professional research friendly, even though researchers are the most end users. This is mainly due to the raw information data presented on the websites and the absence of detailed information such as the origin of an object, how it was acquired, who was the previous owner, the bibliography related. The MIMO, for example, has a good example on this point, and all possible available infos about an opera. Perhaps even information about restoration interventions could be considered to be added online on websites. This, of course, opens a number of considerations to be discussed about what, how, and in which way such information should be available, rather if for free or with entry fees or only with collaborations between institutions, considering what is safe to be uploaded online, which needs a working group to constructively examine every possibility. My personal, only empirical experience mirrors the actual state of digital offers, which I collected in a few points. First of all, there are the objective difficulties of websites not working properly or not having an intuitive interface. There was, for example, a single website which did not allow the user to turn to page 2 of a customized research, as it would reset itself. So one was forced to search objects by using their own categories. The second consideration is on how to adjust the various informations found on websites and make them interact between each other. First, when the communication between websites is already required, and here I bring the example of Europeana and Mimo, which are two platforms with collections of many museums online, in some cases also uncommon ones. And in my case, the result of the research of the single word violin made me find two instruments which were on Europeana but not on Mimo, despite the main museum was shown on both cases as partner. The two violins were a Pietro della Costa from 1762 and a Clive Morris from 2006. It goes without saying that such cases on websites, which are supposed to collect several museum collections, should show the same item when searching the same museums, or this can lead to, as in my case, a double research on both the platforms and the original museum, as one could never know what can be cut off. The second point on the website interactions is the description of the collections which they present, which is never easy to, it's the information which is never easy to be found or clear. And third would be a common protocol to show detailed information and in the same way, with the same form and order, with a common language and pictures, meaning same amount of photos taken with the shared protocol. This would allow an easier research, but also easier confrontations between items from different portals. The third general consideration shown in the third box is about the unclear usage of the research tool. If one would use easy terms, this would include various items and sometimes not even what we are searching. But the advanced research could cut out some important ones. So making it clear, making this research tool clear to the main user is as important as the collection's description previously discussed. When updated also, a research tool needs to be marked as well. The update needs to be marked as well, otherwise a research based on the previous research tool cannot be replied later and does not have references anymore, which is a problem on a scientific perspective. To conclude, my research carried out during the COVID-19 pandemic has revealed the real status of digital offers in regards to research that requires a fast response by addressing both the challenges and opportunities discussed in this presentation in a work group with the close collaboration of conservators, musicologists, and website or whoever is behind the administration of a museum online collection. The increment of online editions of books and texts, the implementation of the OCR system for the newest and old scanned documents, the collaborations between institutions to share materials and sources should be supported even during not-emergency period, making the researcher the main target of museum online collections by implementing the information about an item, clarify the collection sorted on the platforms, and finally making the different portals communicate to each other in order to simplify the research. All these points are just brief suggestions to use all suggestions, but in order to use all the possibilities that the technology can offer, using new tools and new perspectives of research, they may need to be considered as future implementations, seeing it as a great enforcement of research tools, but also a point in a favor of cultural heritage conservations, as museum online collections used as a research tool could prevent an object from the stressy situation several utilization could cause. My presentation is here finished, and thank you all for your attention.